Welcome back to the mental health series for youth, where your health is our wealth. On today's episode, we'll be talking about stress and stress management. Have you ever been in that situation whereby you're going through something very normal? Let's say you're buttering your bread, and all of a sudden you're angry at the bread. If you're like me, let's find out more where our stresses come from and how we can manage it. We are back with Makrina Buka. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We are so excited to hear from you. Yes.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So Makrine, what is stress?
So stress is a response that we all have to demands that are imposed on us, right? And threats, be they real or imagined. So the body responds when there's a demand or a threat, perceived or real.
Okay. I like how you've said it can be perceived. Sometimes your stress comes from what your mind has told you. Or it can be real. It's actually happening right now.
Yes.
Maybe you can talk a little bit more on the perceived stresses. Examples of them?
Yeah. So think about a snake, right? So we are innately fearful of snakes, having evolved from living in the bush. Yeah. So when we see a snake, then we have a stress response. So our body is ready to run or to fight the snake.
Yeah.
Right? And then we could see something that looks like a snake.
Yeah.
And we didn't see it too well. And we think it's a snake and we respond like it's a snake.
Yeah.
You see. Now, the thing about the brain is that it doesn't know the difference. Yeah, it just knows that threat response.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's for us to become a little more discerning and to differentiate and say, oh, looks like a problem, not a problem, relax. Looks like a problem, is a problem, deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd like to point out we are not talking about snakes. It was just an example.
Yes.
Don't stop here. We keep going. All right. Awesome. What are some of the consequences that we end up facing because of perceived stresses and also because of real stresses?
Because it's a response, it doesn't really differentiate whether the source is perceived or real.
Yeah.
It is the same response.
Yeah.
So how the body aligns itself is to deal with what is considered to be problematic.
Yeah.
And it gathers the resources that the body has to best deal with the situation at hand. So it's a very fast kind of decision-making process. You see, if we take the snake example again, you see a small snake and you think, it's a baby snake, I think I can beat it.
Yeah.
So you take whatever it is you need, you hit it and you eliminate it.
Yeah.
And so you're good. So you fight. You fight the threat.
Yeah.
Or you see that it's a big thing and you're like, this one cannot deal.
Yeah.
So my best bet is to
Left.
scatter.
Yeah.
Or it could be a situation where you look at the thing and you realize cannot fight, cannot run.
Yeah.
Let me disappear and allow the thing to disappear.
Yeah.
So an example would be, maybe there are thieves in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? So there are thieves in the neighborhood. You're hearing your neighbors screaming. So you cannot go in to help the neighbors because you don't know if they're armed or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't know how many there are, if some of them are outside watching and others are in the neighbor's house. So you cannot run away.
Yeah.
So your best bet is to keep it silent as much as possible. Try and simulate like there's no one in the house. If you're going to call for help, do it in the most silent way and hope that within some reasonable time, the threat of the thieves will be managed. Either help will come or they'll be scared and and disappear before they decide to try and come into your space. You see. So it depends on how one assesses the situation.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes you can misassess.
Yeah.
Yes, especially on the
Fight.
fleeing.
Oh.
Yeah, or in the fighting,
Yeah.
you might misassess and sort of find yourself in a tricky situation.
True. Even in our day-to-day basis, there are some things that we think we can fight. Let's say that cat that comes and you're just like, 30 marks, you know? So this one I can do, knowing very well that I don't even know which unit I'm doing. Guys, read. Like education. Yes, and you're like, I can handle this one. But then there are times that we just left group, or sometimes, let's say in our relationships, when things start getting heated and we're arguing and we're just like, nope, I'm not dealing with this, and leaving. And then there are sometimes we just like fade into the air. I know there's this meme that people usually send when group chats are getting really heated, where they send this boy who is, I think, 10 years old and he's doing this, and then he just fades away. And that's usually, let's say, if our parents are arguing in front of us and we don't want to make a sound, so they whatever turns to us. And we also can't leave, because just that us leaving, also the side part will still come back to us. So maybe you can talk about how these three are handled in day-to-day basis. Is it the right way to fight through some of these things? Is it wrong to disappear, especially when it's very close to home? Yeah.
All the approaches are functional. They are all intended to support the survival of the individual. Because remember, stress is a response to demands and threats, real or imagined. So the end goal is survival. You want to survive that situation. So depending on how you assess the situation, if you assess the challenge as one that you have the resources to deal with, then by all means confront it. So example of the exam, you know, if you have been reading and interacting with the content prior to the exam, and you know you're feeling a bit unsettled, some exam stress, it's okay. It's okay that you feel that way, and then you sit the exam and do it.
Yeah.
You see, because you have been preparing for that exam.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Confront it, and then more often than not, you'll be able to come through successfully with that situation, even though it is triggering the stress response, right? In the event that you interpret yourself as not being capable of dealing with that situation, then moving away from it is a survival option. So with the exam situation, if say you have been having some challenges in the run-up to the time when the exam is to be done, there is nothing wrong with you taking the step to go and speak to the relevant individuals in the administration to allow you time to prepare. If you have a legitimate case. So that would be a situation where, yes, the exams are coming, I don't feel sufficiently prepared. Why am I not sufficiently prepared? Because I had these real life situations that prevented me from being available to deal with the content. And hence, the desire to sort of avoid the thing for now. So avoidance does work. It only works for a period. It doesn't work as the go-to thing every other day. You know, you cannot avoid things ad infinitum. It gets to a point where it becomes problematic, right? Then the freezing part as well. Usually the freeze response comes in when you realize that, hey, this situation beyond my capacity to deal. I cannot fight, I cannot run, and if I try to show up it is potentially risky. So like the example you gave where parents maybe are having a fight in the presence of the children.
Yeah.
And the child may have tried. Usually by the time a child is freezing in the face of a confrontation, it's because they have tried in the past to intervene and it didn't end very well.
Yeah.
They probably were thrown very violently and got hurt. You know, they probably were berated in very hurtful ways. The words were very, very hurtful, or a combination there too. And so they consider the safe thing to do is to disappear in the freezing moment.
Yeah.
So they could freeze and just listen and hope and pray that these parents end it fairly fast. Or they could go away into another room and assume that they are not hearing, you know, and try to mute that whole scenario, you know, just for their own wellness.
Yeah.
And this is based off the assessment that if they tried, then they'd be risking themselves. And remember, as a child, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
You can only do so much. If you want to run, where are you running to? These are your folks.
Yeah.
These are the people you depend on for your survival.
Yeah.
So there's no way you're running to. Can you fight them? Of course, you don't have the muscle and the wherewithal to fight them.
Yeah.
And so freezing becomes a viable option. It only becomes problematic when, as you froze as a child, so you freeze as an adult.
Yes.
You see. So you find that you're in an adult situation where there's confrontation, but in reality you have options, unlike when you were a child.
Yeah.
But because of habituation, which is what we are wired to adopt as human beings, we are creatures of habit. You may tend to freeze even where you can do something in the alternative. You could either confront, you know, or walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a place for making an assessment. What really are the resources that I have at hand? Yeah. There is one more response, stress response, that we have, and it's not commonly spoken of. It's called fawning. So fawning is where you tend to do what the aggressor wants you to do, whether or not it's the right thing.
Is that related to people pleasing?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah. Common parlance call it sucking it up to the individual, and usually it is out of a need to survive. So, if with the example of the child who was threatened when they tried to separate the folks the first time, the second time, or they were even hurt.
Yeah.
And then they realized that these folks fight a lot, and in between their fights, when this child does certain things, you know, brings their slippers or removes their cup from the table, or you know, just does acts of kindness, even at the expense of other things that they ought to be doing. It could be in a family where there's substance use disorder, being sent to go and buy the substance for the parent.
Yeah.
They know it's not the right thing to do, but when they do it, the parent is very warm towards them. They will do it. You see, so that kind of thing where you do something which otherwise is inconsistent with your values for the sake of survival is also a stress response.
You've talked about responses to stress. Maybe I can ask you about the different ways we cope with stress, because we've had out here about denial, we've had about repression, we've had about sublimation, but some people, those are just words, you know. Someone will say sublimation has to do with chemistry, you know, from solid to gas. Others will be like, you know, denial, that meme that goes around that it's a river in Egypt, and all these things. So maybe you can take us through the different coping mechanisms for stress.
Yeah, so there are ways of coping that we consider to be adaptive, meaning that you can do them again and again, and they will not cause you hurt or the other person that you're dealing with. And then there are others that are maladaptive. They'll cause you hurt and or the other people that you're interacting with. So the adaptive ways are really effective ways of solving a problem. So if it's an exam, read. Prepare for the exam and read. If it's a disagreement with a relative, a sibling, a parent, a co-worker, call it out, have a sitting, have a discussion, put the disagreement on the table, and then figure out if you're going to agree or agree to disagree, but have a formal way of closing out on the matter. Deal with the issue, you know, put it out there. Right? Depending on how complex it is, you may invite a third party to participate in that conversation, but you deal with it. You know, so that is an adaptive way of dealing with the stress. Maladaptive ways of dealing with stressors are ways that will cause you harm. So one of the ways that people use to deal with stress is to avoid where they could otherwise, you know, bring it out and address it. You know, so maybe you're in a relationship and the partner does something that you're not happy about. You're very upset by what it is that they did, but you don't tell them. You choose to keep quiet. When they talk to you, you zip it. You know, you zip it and you zip it. You know, so at that point you're weaponizing your emotions against your partner by keeping the distance between you and them. You're not articulating what the issue is. You're keeping them guessing. Because they wouldn't know. They interact with you so many times in a day. They would have to guess, was it the breakfast? Was it the shoes? Was it the bathroom that I didn't close the door? Was it the shoes that I left there? You know, not very useful. You know, so you want to come out. You don't want to withdraw. If it is that you are very angry, you could be very explosive in that moment. So letting your emotions sort of go off on a handle is not a very good way of doing it. There are people who use anger as a way of managing stress. You see. Now, you do not want to use your anger in ways that create a distance between you and the person you're relating. It's okay to experience anger. Like you said, emotions are neither good nor bad. They just are. So, yes, feel angry. Yes, make it be known that you're angry. And then manage that level of anger. And create time and space later so that you can deal with the situation. There are those who use substances. So there are people who use substances to deal with stressful situations. We call it self-medicating. You know, so it is a common thing that people will use whatever substance, alcohol, cigarettes, weed, prescription medication, mira, mogoka. The range is wide. So using substances to numb the intensity of the stress that one is feeling is problematic. Right? What else? We've talked about withdrawal. We've talked about being aggressive, using substances, and then the more adaptive ways. So to sublimation, really, it's a question of taking the situation and making good use out of it. So if I don't know, if I'm struggling with my body as it is, right? One of the ways that I could choose to manage my body situation is to engage in fitness, you know? Some fitness activity. Something that makes my heart go kudu and makes me sweat a lot. It will bring my stress levels down. It will help to tone my body. It will give me health benefits at the end of the day, and even an opportunity to interact with others if I'm doing it in a group setup. You see, so it's a way of dealing with the feelings of stress that end up giving me positive results.
Awesome. So maybe you can write below, are you adaptive coping, or are you maladaptive? You can share more information if you'd like to, but let's know. Let's get to know our audience a little bit better. So we've talked about that. How do we avoid stressful situations? And where we cannot avoid them, how do we manage our stressful situations?
Okay, so it is important that we know ourselves, one, in terms of what are the things that trigger our stress response.
Yes.
Because when you know what triggers your stress response, then you could choose an appropriate action, either to avoid it if it's practical to do so, or to confront it if it's practical to do so, or to change your mindset around that thing.
Yeah.
Because some things are not changeable. So an example would be, there are individuals who speak very slowly to make their point, and they can be irritating.
Yes.
Right? And yet, that is their nature. So if I'm finding myself triggered by this individual who speaks very slowly in the service of making their point, I will not change that individual.
Yeah.
I could choose either not to interact with that individual if it's so possible, or to embrace the fact that that is that person's reality and give myself time when I have to interact with them.
Yeah.
That will remove the stress response that I would otherwise have. You see.
Yeah.
So you're changing your thinking around a situation that you have zero control in changing. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's a possible way of dealing with the stress situation.
Yeah. What would you tell students who are trying to cope with their stress, and also those who have moved into the marketplace? How should they be able to cope with day-to-day stresses, in your view?
I think several things they could do. One is to acknowledge their abilities and their limitations. So where you know your abilities, leverage them to the maximum.
Yeah.
Where you know your limitations, acknowledge and accept that, hey, I'm limited in this area. If it's something that I am interested in getting better at, then I make a plan to get better at it.
Yeah.
If it's something that I have no interest in getting better at, then I accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
You see. So I'll give you an example. I have not been very good with directions for the longest. Now I am way better than many moons ago.
Yeah.
And in as much as that has been a weakness that I have, I did not feel that I wanted to change myself in any form or shape around that.
Yeah.
I was happy to ask for directions every 10 meters.
Yeah.
You see. So once you have that level of acceptance, then it's okay. You know it's a limitation. I'm happy with it as it is, and I will live with whatever it presents.
Yeah.
So it makes your life easier as a person.
Yeah.
You know, it also helps to expand your social support network. You know, because as you're going into the workplace, there'll be things that you know in theory, and then the practicalities on the ground are very different.
Yeah.
You see. So when you have contacts that you feel comfortable and safe to, you know, inquire from, you're able to get the wisdom that they are willing to share with you.
Yeah.
That could help to relieve some of the stresses that would come in the workplace. It's also important to appreciate that as you go into the workplace, there's a learning curve. The learning curve is a reality.
Yeah.
It is a reality of life, whatever it is. You may have had some background, this and that, but when you come to the practicalities of this given establishment that you are now going to work at or with, there are certain nuances that you'll have to learn, and hence you may get a bit of slowing down even though you are skilled and trained.
Yeah.
And just be open to the fact that that is reality. That I will have some slow portion before I get my rhythm within the workplace.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's neither good nor bad, it just is.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. To the people at home, as you go through your stresses, are you perceiving them or are they real? And how will you cope with it? Will it be adaptive or maladaptive? So please tell us, let's interact with you. Thank you, Makreen, for being here. Thank you for the knowledge that you've poured into this microphone. We really appreciate you. And for the people at home, please like and share. Send to even your boss this. He might be going through stress or she might be going through stress. Send to your family members. And we can't wait to see you on our next episode. My name is Wanza. This has been the Mental Health series, where your health is your wealth. Thank you. Bye.